So what's the best way that your community can rank on Google's search engine results page? I think it's taking a nap. Hi, thanks for joining Fresh Insights from Fresh Faces, episode 6. And today we are going to be taking a nap. This is the nap edition of Fresh Insights from Fresh Faces. And I'm kidding here because the purpose today, the point today is to talk about local listings. And NAP stands for name, address, phone number, which Phil will get into at length. And I'd like to welcome Phil, our occupancy marketing expert from Link Media 360. Phil, how are you feeling today?
Feeling great, Jeff.
So good. So look, the topic of the day, and we're not taking naps, even though we might want to take one later on this afternoon. It is local listings management. And for the past several episodes, we talked about the anatomy of the search engine results page and how we started at the top, pay-per-click, next is local listings, and then finally organic. And we're in the second of this three-step process on breaking down the anatomy of a search engine results page. So today, Phil and I are going to chat about local listings management. And it's not simply just making sure you get the postcard from Google and filling it out. There's a whole host, a whole litany of things you can do to make sure that you put your community in the best position forward to end up on the top of the results page. So I guess, Phil, let's just start with the basics. Like, what are local listings? Explain that to our audience out there, if you could, please.
Yeah, sure. So local listings essentially refers to how your name, address, phone number, and website are displayed across online sources that store that local business information, Jeff. And a lot of our communities and community managers are pretty familiar with at least Google Plus. So what they've done, or Google My Business. So what they've done is they've sent in the postcards, they've gotten them back, they've called in, they've pressed the little pin key. They believe that they are verified on Google. Some of our communities have even spent money to try to fix this issue with local news agencies or even publisher products. But essentially, Jeff, local listings is that name, address, phone number, anywhere where anybody or a search engine can find it.
And so you're saying it's more than just Google. It goes beyond the scope of Google. So if I say, why should we care? It's not just about filling out that postcard and optimizing your Google listing. I mean, why should we really care about local listings?
Yeah, Jeff. So I think there's two really big points here that we want to talk about. And first, it's our brand. It's our brand information, right? So we want to make sure that if it's out there, that people are finding the right information. Because, and to dive a little bit deeper into that, one, it's just a really poor brand representation if somebody calls in and it's not the right phone number for us. So we want to make sure that our current residents and their families can easily phone up and give us a call and ask us any questions, check on their loved one, and just generally find that information, hours of operation, when can they come by. We want to make sure that everybody can find that information and make sure that it's correct.
And so that has to be actively submitted. It just doesn't suck in like in the old days, the yellow pages or the white pages. If you had a phone number, it just kind of sucked in the information and you really didn't have to do anything about it, where you're saying you have to actively manage the presentation of this information. It won't just happen.
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't just happen, unfortunately. It takes the use of tools, which we'll talk about. It takes time. It takes manual submissions to really make sure that your information is correct. Because there are over 300 directories, if you believe that, Jeff, that are 300 sources of information that you have to get out there and make sure that your information is not only one, visible, but two, correct.
Wow. How is one supposed to stay on top of 300 directories?
Right.
That seems a little
Especially if
daunting.
you look at it, that's just for one location. So if you have 10 locations, 300 directories, you've got 3,000 listings out there that you've got to try to manage, right? And so today, that's what we want to talk about is just making it a little bit easier. Where can we get started? But also to really talk about the impacts that local listings has on the local search space, the visibility, and ultimately the ranking of your website, which we know as that increases, so do inquiries, on-site tours, and that also supports our resident acquisition goals.
Okay. So then what it boils down to is you have to actively, just like any brand strategy, right? You want your brand to be seen in the most positive way and manage the brand attributes. Consistent with that is actually the detailed name, address, phone number, website information across
Correct.
this litany of listings. And
Correct.
are you saying that consumers or your potential residents or their adult child influencers use a variety of different sources, and so we have to literally just from a brand and trust, and this has to do with trust too, right? If hey, if they can't get their phone number right, what in the heck are they going to do with my, tell me about that.
Right. Yeah, so that's a great point. So actually 73% of users that find incorrect brand information in the local listing space lose trust in a brand. And that's a huge part, right? Because the part that we haven't talked about, Jeff, is we can't quantify the amount of lost inquiries from incorrect information. So if I dial and I pick up the phone and I get the pizza place down the street, how many times has that happened, not only this month, but this year and over the course of the entirety of our community's legacy? How many times has somebody gotten the wrong phone number and then not done more digging to find the right one and just moved on to the next community?
Wow.
So what are we missing out on besides just managing our brand? What else could we be missing here?
So those are unknown unknowns. Like you'll never
Right.
know who didn't call you, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, and it's just tough because those are the two big points, right? So we want to manage our brand so that users and search engines can find us, but also we want to make sure that we are capturing all of the inquiries that we can, because this is a very competitive space. It's tough. It's tough to get somebody to pick the phone up, and when they do, we want to make sure it's the right phone number.
Right. And if they aren't, go ahead, Phil. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, so if the accurate information are accurate and this is about visibility, right? So how can you put yourself in the best foot forward, get visible, have accurate information, get those phone calls? Will they have a better shot? Say all that information is correct and Google likes the way it looks. Will they have a better shot at ranking?
Yeah, so that's another important piece here. Local listings, specifically the accuracy and consistency of your name, address, phone number, and website on these 300 directories, Jeff, plays a huge role in SEO. So not only in organic search, but also in the map pack or the local listing section. And in fact, the consistency and accuracy makes up about 37% of how you rank in the map pack and about 15% of how you rank organically. So this is, while it is a piece to the puzzle, it's a considerable piece to two of the three areas on a search engine results page.
And refresh our memory from episode 4, I believe, when we talk about the map pack. How is the search engine results page stacked once again?
Yeah, so it's stacked with the paid listings on top, and then the map pack breakout right underneath. And what you're going to see there is 3 pin needles and a map. And then underneath that, you'll see the organic listings or your traditional blue links.
Okay. All right. So sticking with our theme of today, local listings management, we're focused on the second part of the 3 parts of the search engine results page. Now that we know what they are and why we should care and the implications of not caring, right? And we're not just gonna, when we say focus on napping, that's important, right? Name, address, phone number, it's important. But how do we get our hands on this? Like how many sources are out there? How do we actually get our hands around this whole process?
Sure. So the local search ecosystem, Jeff, it's a crazy place. It's kind of like the Wild West out there. But there is a little bit of framework here. And there are some steps we can take to help us manage our NAP, our name, address, phone number. So First, like I said, there's over 300 sources that search engines are looking at, and 300 sources that store your information. And so there's search engine directories, and they kind of break down into a couple of different, I would say, sources or directories. There's search engine directories. So basically, everybody knows about Google My Business, Bing, and Yahoo Local. So those are all very important places to be visible. Then there are common directories like yp.com, superpages.com, Yelp, Foursquare, even Facebook is a directory, and it's a really important one actually. And those are kind of your common directories. Those are the ones that users really know and go to. And so there's a third subset too that users are very interested in, and so are search engines. And those are your vertical specific directories. So those are the ones that are like caring.com, seniorhousing.net, retirementhomes.com. So there's a lot of different places that your information can show up, and there's a lot of different ways to get there. And I guess it would be great to know how to get there, right, Jeff?
Yeah, right. How do you with that variety? So it's not simply one postcard and you're all set, right?
Right. Yeah. So there's a couple of different ways. So again, with those different levels of directories and sources, there's different ways to get added on them. So some of them you submit to them directly for free, like Google My Business. You submit to them, they send you a postcard. You can log in, update your description, etc. So that's a direct submission. There's another way to get there. Some of them require a fee. So they say if you'd like to be listed, it's $100 a year to be listed. And then there's another one that is through syndication. So that comes through our tool set that we have. And basically what syndication means is that 4 sources of truth, the data aggregators, feed or push down your information to the over 300 directories. So that's the number one tool, is find a syndication tool that hits the top 4 data aggregators so they can increase the reach of your listings.
I see. That sounds like, I mean, my head's spinning a little bit given the variety of approaches here. So what are syndication tools? Like what could one use?
Yeah, so the syndication tools, something like a Moz is a great syndication tool. Bright Local is another syndication tool. And really what that means is they're going to submit your information to the top 4 data aggregators. And those are the sources of truth, right, Jeff? So when we syndicate, what that means is this is going to push our listings to over 300 directories. So that's the first place to start, is syndication tools for sure.
And so if I just use a syndication tool, snap my fingers, it's instantaneous, right? I mean, bang, I'm done. Or no?
Wouldn't that be nice, Jeff, if it was that easy?
Yeah. One could only hope, right?
Right. Yeah. So once you submit, though, it typically takes somewhere anywhere between, I would say, 4 and 12 weeks to start to see because it's all automated, right? So everybody shares listings. So it takes about, I would say, up to about 3 months for your listings to get shared correctly throughout the space. But even once you get it shared, we have to make sure that it is still correct, right? Because this is all automated. They're all robots and tools. So go out and do monthly manual audits as well.
I was going to say, is there an audit like how do we keep them honest, right? So we're paying the syndication tools, we're utilizing these tools. It's this vast network that they're covering. Like, how do we stay on top of it?
Yeah, that's where some of the other tools come in, like a Moz Local, where you can go check your listings to see your accuracy and complete score. And that's how we do spot checks. You can also invest in some other tools like Yext that has a direct API. So this is a different tool that we have out there. Yext in 72 hours will automatically update your listing to about 60 directories. So we've really got 2 places we can go. One is a syndication source, and one is more of a software as a service.
Okay. So they will cover the larger array of sources out there, at least to get you covered.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And you're saying there's that you do, my understanding and what I've seen before is you do get a score. So Moz will tell you basically, tell us about the scoring model, if you will, just so we can get a sense of how that works.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Moz will kind of spit out a percentage score, and that's your complete and accuracy score. Search engines are looking for you to be 80% or better. And that's just because they want to have full faith and confidence that before they share your information, it is correct. So 80% is a great score to have.
Okay. So we can go and check. Can anyone check their score?
Sure can. Yep. If you go to moz.com/local, it will allow you to type in your business name and your zip code. Okay. And check and see how correct and accurate your listings are.
All right. So that sounds like a great way to get started. Just literally, what's the current state? Like how are we currently being presented across, this wide variety of listings?
Right. Exactly.
All right. Are there other things to consider, other ways to get started if you want to take action and just make sure you have your bases covered?
Yeah, I think the first place you want to start is Google and other search engine directories because they put a lot of weight on themselves being a directory. So, of course, we want to make sure that we're claimed and verified with the directories. And then we want to make sure that we do that kind of initial audit to get the state of the listings, so to speak. But then I think, again, another great step is to invest in a syndication tool, at least to get your foundation right. But then really there's, like I mentioned previously, there's other software as a service that can help get a little bit more advanced with your listings to really increase your score a little bit faster. So I think that if you can find a software as a service like a Yext that has some duplicate suppression and some other tools involved, I think that would be, kind of step 3.
Okay. So there is a way. So just to make sure if we really want to optimize and put our community in, the best foot forward as far as, the ranking factors once again.
Right.
For those of us that, for those communities that just want to get started and have the minimum bases covered, I know something you've mentioned to me before is if you are updating Google, it's not just about the name, address, phone number, but can they do other things like putting images in there? What else is available if you're going to invest in taking the time to get the information correct?
Yeah, I think that some of the other areas that are super important are your business categories, your hours of operation, SEO friendly descriptions, and then photos of your community. So if I land on a local listing, I'm really looking very locally specific. So I want to see the images. I want to have some of that, again, strong branding that funnels through not only from the website and from our collateral, but also into these local listings so that we can really put our best foot forward to encourage, again, somebody to pick that phone up and schedule an on-site tour.
Huh. Do stock photos work, or should I have more day in the life type of photos? Like, what do you recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. Day in the life, of course. Everybody really, again, if they go there, they want to see exactly what the community looks like, not, big stock images.
So everyone's smiling.
Right, exactly. Everybody's smiling, with a faded out background.
Right. How often I'm sorry, I'm kind of hung up on this photos thing. How often should we add new photos to our listings?
Well, I would say, a couple of times a year would be great. Right. But realistically, once you submit it, if you have a couple of photos, as long as you're staying up to date with how you're adjusting your on-site imagery. So if you get a new photo shoot, you've got some updated photos from this year, go ahead and replace those. But you don't always have to be updating that.
Okay. All right. And
every so often.
Raised another interesting question I'm thinking about now. Say we have a community, there are lots of, mergers and acquisitions in this industry. And say when two large communities come together with multiple locations, is it almost important, like one of the first things you do post acquisition or post merger is to get those listings corrected with, say, new branding?
Yes, absolutely. That is, once you finalize the new brand, this would be one of the first steps I would take to start building a quality digital foundation. It's because, again, this is 15% of where you're going to rank organically. This is where a lot of individuals, a lot of users, current residents and their families, even potential residents and their families, this is where they're going to find your information on Google and or other search engines. So we need to make sure that this is right. Plus, it takes time, right? It takes 3, 4, 5 months to start to clean this up. So if you wait, the longer you wait to see this, kind of local listing space be cleaned up for both brands.
Okay. Yeah, because so often, we see communities, they rebrand, right? And they're really increasing the volume and the weight of say, television advertising or local advertising to message the rebrand. But if the digital accuracy isn't there to support that rebrand, because, we often know that branding, from a promotional and a traditional standpoint leads to search inquiries. So once again,
and that's exactly. So as somebody hears from TV and radio, they hear the new brand name, they go to Google it, but unfortunately Google itself is still storing the old brand name. So it can't return the new brand name. Thus there's some confusion on who am I talking to. And so right there is one of the biggest, I would say, problems that some of our communities are facing today, is that issue where they've rebranded to everywhere else but the search engine space.
So that goes back to trust.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Now that makes me want to take a nap.
Right.
So
perfect.
Anyway, well, Phil, this has been helpful. I know there's a lot more. Anything in local listings management that we want to think about, or any advice we want to share to our audience out there?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of great tools at our fingertips, Jeff. But just like any tool, it'll only take us so far. And as we get a little bit more advanced, there's definitely some local search strategies that can help us take on some of those bigger players in the space, even those lead aggregators that are out there, and really compete on a localized level with national players without having to, use the budgets that they're using. So I think that once we get that great foundation of listings built, it's time to take that next step and use some strategy for local search optimizations that include local listings.
Right. It sounds like there's lots of I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed, and the depth of experience you have in using these tools and linking this strategy to your search strategy, which ultimately leads to resident acquisition strategy, right? And that's where it's important to have all this continuity across your entire spectrum where it all fits together. So that makes a lot of sense, Phil.
Right. And like we talked about, Jeff, this makes up 15% of your organic ranking factors. So it's only 15% of the pie. So there's 85% more to go. So this is super important. It's definitely something that I know our managers really struggle with at times, is where are we? How do we fix this? And what's our next step? So, hopefully, first audit it and then, find some syndication tools that work for you.
All right. No, that's good. Well, Phil, if there are any remaining questions, we covered a lot of ground. Thanks for all the details here. How can they reach you? How can our audience reach you, please?
Yeah, absolutely. P. Smith at linkmedia360.com, or they can check out our show page, linkmedia360.com/FIFF.
Nice. Phil, that's awesome. That brings episode 6 to a close. Fresh insights from fresh faces. And I encourage everyone to please join us for episode 7, where we will be finishing our anatomy lesson, right? And we're going to talk about local. We talked about local listings today, but we're going to talk about SEO and organic rankings and how we can we're down the page and getting to that place where we can really put forward great strategy to be presented organically as well.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, Phil, we will see you then. Hope you have a great day.
Yes, you too.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.